What would you do if your boss canceled your vacation and it ended up costing your company 100,000 euros per day? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the most expensive lesson a company can learn is what happens when they push their key employees too far. Stay with me, because this story has more twists than a corporate thriller. And the ending? Let's just say karma has a way of balancing the books. Before we dive into this story, I need you to understand something crucial about the corporate world. There's a difference between being dedicated to your job and being taken advantage of. And sometimes, the line between those two things becomes crystal clear, only when it's crossed in the most spectacular way possible. My name is Alex, and I've been working in systems integration for over 8 years. I've seen office politics, power plays, and executive decisions that would make your head spin. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened when Director Johnson decided that my planned vacation was less important than his ego. Let me paint you a picture. It's a multinational corporation, the kind where the coffee costs more than most people's hourly wage, and where executive decisions trickle down like expensive champagne at a board meeting. I was working as senior systems analyst, responsible for managing critical financial integrations, and I was good at it. Actually, scratch that, I was exceptional at it. I'd been with the company for 6 years, consistently exceeded my targets, and had become the go-to person for our most critical projects. You know the type, the employee who gets called when things go wrong, who stays late to fix problems that shouldn't have existed in the first place, and who somehow always manages to pull rabbits out of hats when deadlines seem impossible? But here's the thing about being indispensable. Sometimes people start treating you like you actually can't be dispensed with. And that's where our story really begins. 6 months before this all went down, I had submitted a vacation request. Not just any vacation, this was my first real break in 2 years. 2 weeks in Greece, completely disconnected from work, phones turned off, the whole 9 yards. It was approved by HR, signed off by my immediate supervisor, and I had been planning it for months. I'm talking hotel reservations, flight bookings, the works. I had even coordinated with my team to ensure all ongoing projects would be covered. This wasn't some last-minute request, this was planned, approved, and documented vacation time that I had earned through years of dedication. And frankly, a lot of overtime that went uncompensated. Now, enter Director Johnson. For the sake of this story, let's call him DJ, though DJ definitely doesn't stand for justice. DJ was one of those executives who measured his importance by how many fires he could create, and then heroically put out. He had been with the company for about 6 months, brought in from outside to shake things up and optimize operations. Translation: he had no idea how things actually worked, but was determined to make his mark, regardless of the collateral damage. 2 weeks before my vacation, DJ called me into his office. I remember the date exactly. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was literally finishing up the final preparations to hand over my responsibilities to my colleagues. "We need to talk," he said, in that tone that immediately tells you the conversation isn't going to go well. "I've been reviewing the upcoming project timeline, and I'm going to need you to postpone your vacation." Postpone, not reschedule, postpone. As if my 2 weeks of planned rest and recovery were just an inconvenience that could be moved around like a meeting. I explained the situation. The vacation was approved. Flights were booked. Everything was non-refundable at this point. Do you know what he said? "That sounds like a personal problem. We have a business to run." A personal problem. 2 years of working weekends, missing family events, and being available at all hours, and my first vacation in that time was a personal problem. But here's where it gets interesting. DJ didn't just cancel my vacation because of some urgent project or client emergency. No. He canceled it because he wanted to implement a new reporting system. and he wanted me to personally oversee the transition. A system that, by the way, could have easily been delayed by 2 weeks or managed by any number of other qualified team members. This wasn't about business necessity. This was about power. This was about a new director marking his territory and showing everyone who was in charge. Now I had a choice to make. I could fight it, escalate to HR, make a big scene, or I could do something else entirely. Something that would teach everyone involved a lesson they'd never forget. I looked DJ straight in the eye and said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. The business comes first. I'll cancel my vacation." He seemed surprised that I gave in so easily. Maybe even a little disappointed that he didn't get the fight he was expecting. But what DJ didn't know, what nobody in that office knew, was that I had been documenting everything for months. You see, I'm not just good at my job, I'm methodical about it. Every process, every protocol, every little detail that keeps our operations running smoothly. I had it all documented. But here's the crucial part. I had documented it for my own reference, not for the company. The company had never asked for this documentation. They had never created systems to capture institutional knowledge. They just assumed that because I was always there, I always would be there. Let me tell you about what I actually do at this company, because this is where the €100,000 per day figure starts to make sense. I manage the integration between our legacy systems and our new client-facing platform. Sounds technical and boring, right? Well, this boring system processes about €2.5 million in transactions every day. And the integration isn't just plug and play, it requires constant monitoring, real-time adjustments, and manual interventions when things go wrong. Over the 2 years I'd been in this role, I had become the only person who truly understood the intricacies of this system. Not because I hoarded information, but because the company had never invested in proper training or documentation for anyone else. They were perfectly happy to have one person carry all that responsibility, as long as that person was always available. The system had quirks, lots of them. Database conflicts that occurred every few days, requiring specific workarounds. Client integration issues that needed manual fixes. Monitoring protocols that I had developed through trial and error over months. And here's the kicker. None of this was officially documented in company systems. My documentation was personal, created on my own time, using my own methods, because I needed it to do my job effectively. So I canceled my vacation, lost about €3,000 in non-refundable bookings, by the way. And for 2 weeks, I did exactly what DJ asked me to do. I implemented his new reporting system. I trained the team on the new protocols. And I made sure everything was running smoothly. But here's what else I did during those 2 weeks. I started preparing for what would happen after my actual vacation. Because you see, DJ's little power play had clarified something for me. This company didn't value me as a professional. They saw me as a resource to be used until depleted. And I decided it was time to start treating the relationship accordingly. I began reaching out to contacts in the industry. I updated my resume. I started having quiet conversations with headhunters. But I also did something else. I started following company policy to the letter. You know how most experienced employees develop informal workarounds to get things done faster? How we sometimes bend rules or skip steps because we know what really matters and what doesn't. I stopped doing that. Every protocol, every approval process, every bureaucratic step that the company had in place, I started following them exactly. If a process required 3 signatures, I got 3 signatures. If a form needed to be filled out in triplicate, I filled it out in triplicate. Suddenly, processes that I used to complete in hours were taking days. But I wasn't breaking any rules, I was following them perfectly. 3 weeks after my canceled vacation, I walked into DJ's office with a single sheet of paper. My resignation letter. 2 weeks' notice, effective immediately. Professional, courteous, and completely final. DJ's reaction was priceless. First confusion, then anger, then panic. "You can't just quit," he said. "We're in the middle of implementing the new system." "The new system is implemented," I replied. "My documentation is complete, the team is trained, and my replacement can take over whenever you find one." "What replacement?" "UARE the system," he practically shouted. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the moment DJ realized what he had done. He had pushed away the one person who kept his department running, all for the sake of proving who was boss. But wait, it gets better. Because DJ then did something that elevated this whole situation from a simple resignation to a corporate catastrophe. He refused to accept my resignation. I'm not kidding. He literally said, "I don't accept this. You're not quitting." Now, I don't know what corporate law courses DJ had taken, but apparently they skipped the section on, "You can't force people to work for you. A resignation isn't a request, it's a notification." I explained this to DJ calmly and professionally. "This isn't a negotiation," I said. "I'm informing you that I will not be here after the 15th. You have 2 weeks to transition my responsibilities." That's when DJ made his second catastrophic mistake. He threatened me. He said that if I left, he'd make sure I never worked in the industry again. That he had connections, that he'd destroy my reputation, that I was making the biggest mistake of my career. I looked at him for a long moment, and then I said something that I had been planning for 3 weeks. "DJ, you canceled my vacation because you thought I was indispensable. Now you're threatening me because you realize I actually am. The irony would be funny if it weren't so expensive." And then I walked out. Not in 2 weeks right then, because threats void any obligation to provide transition assistance. The next morning, I was at home, enjoying my coffee and starting my job search in earnest, when my phone started ringing. Not my personal phone, my work phone, which I had turned in when I left. It was my former colleague Sarah, calling from her personal phone. "You need to know what's happening here," she said. "It's chaos." Apparently, the system had started throwing error codes at 6 in the morning. Nothing dramatic. Just routine maintenance issues that I usually handled before most people got to the office. But nobody knew how to handle them. DJ had assigned the issues to Mark, one of the junior developers, figuring that since it was just computer stuff, any programmer could handle it. Mark spent 4 hours trying to fix what would have taken me 15 minutes. By 10 in the morning, transaction processing had slowed to about 30% of normal capacity. By noon, 3 major clients had called to complain about delays. That first day cost the company approximately €75,000 in lost transactions and expediting fees to fix the problems. But the first day was nothing compared to what happened over the next week. Day 2, the database integration failed completely during peak hours. The backup systems I had configured kicked in, but nobody knew how to optimize them for full capacity. Transaction processing dropped to 15% of normal. Cost €180,000. Day 3, a client integration that I had been manually managing for months stopped working. The client couldn't process payments through our platform. It took the team 8 hours to figure out what I used to fix in 20 minutes. Cost €95,000. Day 4, DJ hired an emergency consultant at €2,000 per day to analyze my documentation. The consultant spent the entire day trying to understand my personal notes, which were never meant for anyone else to use. Progress, minimal. Cost €2,000 plus another €130,000 in system downtime. By the end of week 1, the company had lost nearly €600,000 in direct costs, not counting the overtime pay for the entire IT department, who were working around the clock trying to keep things running. And DJ? DJ was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, canceling my vacation hadn't been his brightest idea. Week 2 was when things got really interesting. I started getting calls from everyone: HR, the CEO, even DJ himself, though he had someone else make the call first to test the waters. The offers started small. They'd match any competing salary. Then they got more creative: signing bonus, extra vacation time, work from home flexibility. By day 10, they were offering me nearly double my previous salary, plus equity options. But here's the thing: I had already accepted a position with a competitor. Better salary, better benefits, and most importantly, a management team that understood the value of work-life balance. The final offer from my old company came on day 12. DJ himself called me, and I've never heard someone sound so desperate. €120,000 salary increase, a personal apology, and a guarantee that I could take my vacation immediately after returning. I told him the same thing I had told everyone else. I appreciate the offer, but I've moved on. By the time they finally got their system stable, which took about 6 weeks, and 3 different consulting firms, the total cost was staggering. Direct losses from system downtime and failed transactions, €1.2 million. Emergency consulting fees, €180,000. Overtime costs for existing staff, €85,000. Cost of hiring and training my replacement, €45,000. And that's not counting the indirect costs: client dissatisfaction, reputation damage, and the fact that 2 major clients ended up switching to competitors. All of this because DJ couldn't wait 2 weeks for me to take a vacation that had been approved 6 months in advance. The daily average cost during those first 2 weeks? About €100,000 per day. Which, coincidentally, is exactly what I told DJ it would cost when he refused to accept my resignation. So what's the moral of this story? It's not about revenge. Though I'll admit there was some satisfaction in watching DJ try to explain to the board why his department had hemorrhaged over €1 million in a month. The real lesson is about value and respect in the workplace. Companies often don't realize what they have until it's gone, and by then, it's usually too late. I wasn't irreplaceable because I was the smartest person in the room, or because I had some unique talent. I was irreplaceable because the company had made me irreplaceable by failing to invest in proper systems, documentation, and cross-training. They created a single point of failure and then acted surprised when that point failed. But more importantly, this story is about recognizing your own worth and refusing to be treated as anything less than a professional. DJ didn't cancel my vacation because of business necessity. He canceled it because he could. Or at least, because he thought he could. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And when they show you how little they value you, maybe it's time to find someone who values you more. As for what happened next, DJ was restructured out of the company about 2 months later. The official reason was strategic realignment, but everyone knew the real story. My replacement? She's actually doing a great job from what I hear. But the company learned their lesson. They invested in proper documentation, cross-training, and backup systems. They even implemented a policy requiring management approval for any vacation cancellations within 30 days of the planned dates. And me? I'm thriving in my new role, working for a company that understands that employees are human beings, not machines. I get my vacation time, I work reasonable hours, and when I need to disconnect, I can actually do it without worrying about everything falling apart. Oh, and I finally took that vacation. 2 weeks in Greece, completely disconnected, exactly as originally planned. It was glorious. If you've made it this far, you probably have a story of your own about workplace drama or corporate karma. Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear how other people have dealt with similar situations. And if you're currently dealing with a boss who doesn't respect your time or value your contributions, remember, you always have more power than you think you do. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, subscribe for more workplace tales and career advice, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching, and remember, your vacation time isn't a privilege, it's part of your compensation. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.